Hey everyone, I'm really excited to welcome our guest here today. He actually at one point dropped out of college, but don't hold it against him. I actually did that at one point too. But he at that point became a 5 times best-selling author, built a 7-figure business all in a 2-year period, which I'm certain many of us would love to do. And he's actually sharing a lot of that knowledge about how he did that and really helping people with creating books and publishing books, but is also a course creator and sharing a lot of that knowledge through online courses. I know he's got some really interesting techniques and methods around publishing books and publishing courses. So really excited to hear today from Chandler Bolt. Chandler, welcome. And as I mentioned, he's the creator of Self-Publishing School. So if you want to learn more about that and some of the stuff we're going to be talking about here today, you want to check out self-publishingschool.com, and we'll share the link here with this video. Welcome, Chandler.
Greg, thanks for having me, man. So great to be here.
Awesome. Excellent. So I wanted to dive in. Well, actually, you know what? You were just in Canada. You braved coming up here into the cold and went skiing up here, right?
Yes, snowboarding and not skiing.
Not skiing. Right?
Yeah. You know, snowboarders and skiers, big difference, right? But yeah, we went snowboarding up at Baldface with Dan Martell and a bunch of entrepreneurs and other guys who have courses. And guys who are just running ridiculous businesses. I mean, yeah. I was definitely the small man on the totem pole. I mean, multiple guys running hundreds of millions of dollars. Like their companies are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and so it was really cool. I had a blast, and now it's back into work mode.
Yeah. I think I saw a little video of you doing a quadruple backflip. Was it on Facebook?
Yes. It's not what it sounds like. It was me falling 4 times and then sticking the landing. They call it tomahawking down the mountain, where you just fall out of control and you can't really stop yourself, and that's what happened. Yeah.
But you snowboarded away from it.
Yeah, and then fell again. But it was a good time.
Nice. Awesome. Well, you have to let us know next time you're up here, and we'll hang out.
For sure.
Awesome. So I something to share for me is I mentioned earlier is I'm about 75% of the way through to publishing a book. So that's the upside, the good news. The bad news is I could have said the same thing about 8 years ago. So I'm actually kind of curious from a book publishing perspective. And it actually, for me, it started, the progress for me is I had a live class, then I made a blog, then I made an online course, and then full circle, I decided I continued doing all of that stuff, blogging, online courses, teaching live, doing some coaching and tutoring. And then I decided I can take this stuff and write a book from it. So I got most of the way through the book, and then of course, got focused on other things. But, you know, what would you say to someone like me where I kind of hit the point of like, this is a lot of work, even at 75% of the writing done, there's a lot of work to actually get it published, get it out there, distribute it, market it, all that kind of stuff. Why get into the book space, and what's the benefits of doing that, especially if you're already in courses, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so several questions kind of peppered in there. So the first thing is, why get in the book space? For me, I saw a book change my life. I published a book right as I was dropping out of school. The book made close to $7,000 in the first month. Continued to make thousands of dollars in passive income month after month after month. So I've seen books not only bring in passive income, but they also bring in leads. And I'd argue much better than a blog or anything else like that can bring in leads. A book can do it 10 times better. My first book brought in close to 4,000 leads within the first few months. I've had, one of my recent books brought in 3,365 leads, I think it was, within the first 55 days.
Leads from a book?
Yes.
So I know you got a whole bunch more stuff to share there, but so how do you get the leads from the book?
Yeah, you're going to love this.
So against the conventional digital marketing, sign up form, call to action thing.
Yeah, because most people are using books to get leads, but you can use books to get leads. Yeah. And the way I do it, and you're going to love this, Greg, there's 2 things. So obviously Amazon is an ecosystem of, there's over 100 million buyers in that ecosystem. So like all ecosystems, there's platforms like Thinkific, there's Amazon, there's the iTunes store, like the podcast store, things like that. So all ecosystems, they have a ton of traffic. That's the benefit to plugging yourself into one of those ecosystems, is the traffic, right? So what I do is I just take that traffic and I like to say that Google is the search engine of browsers. Amazon is the search engine of buyers. So when people are on Amazon, they're there for one reason and one reason only. That's to buy stuff. And not only that, but Google and SEO is way more competitive than Amazon because there's a barrier to entry. You have to have a book or you have to have a product, right? And so that's a lot more than just you have to have a WordPress site and a blog. So there's a bigger barrier to entry, but there's still this massive flow of people coming through there. So what I like to do is just funnel those people out and just bring them straight into my business. Now, the way I do that, there's two different things. So what I found works best for converting book buyers or even book browsers into leads is video and audio. A lot of people try to give PDFs or checklists or my 77-step system to making $1 million or whatever, right?
And might have seen that one.
Yeah, we all have about 1,000 times. That's why it doesn't work, right? And so if you think about it from the psychology perspective, when I just started to read your book or even look at your book, what's the last thing that I want to do? Read another book. I don't even really want to read your book. I would rather listen to it on audio, or I would rather, watch a video that gives me the gist of it, that sort of thing. So Psychologically, it's just much better. And then there's also perceived value. Everyone's seen the PDFs, the checklists, the stuff like that. It's just not worth anything. It doesn't have any intrinsic value to most people because they've seen that, they've given their email, and then they've gotten spammed. They've gotten, a crappy thrown together PDF that just sucks. It's not any good for the most part. And so the video, that works, but my personal favorite is audiobooks, and I give them away. Now, audiobook has a ton of intrinsic value, right? I would pay 8 to 15, even I luckily had an Audible credit, but the other day I was purchasing an audiobook for $75. I had an Audible credit, so it was $0. So people pay a lot of money for an audiobook, right? So what I do is I put it in the very beginning of the book. And you can check out my book, book launch, or my book published. If people at home want to follow along, just go to that book on Amazon, click the look inside feature. Here's where it gets good. So Amazon will preview you, or will show consumers the first 10% of a book. I see you chuckling. You know where I'm going with this.
Awesome.
So they'll preview this. And so what happens is people preview my book, and then they'll scroll to the first page and they'll say, download the audiobook free. It'll have huge text, huge image, and they'll say, hey, thanks so much for checking out my book. To say thank you, I want to give you a free audiobook, a free copy of the audiobook. Just click here to download it. They go over to my site. They opt in. I get that lead, and that's how I just get thousands and thousands and thousands of leads off of my books. It's good. It's a continuous flow of leads. And on top of that, we start the relationship on the right foot, right? If we started the relationship and I just give you an audiobook for free, you're going to say, man, I like this Chandler guy. We're off to a good start. He didn't slam me with some crappy PDF. He gave me an audiobook, which I already value because I pay for that elsewhere. So that's how I siphon leads off of books. And that, I know we went like way off of.
No, that's great. And so do you, when you send them to get the audiobook, they're obviously giving you the email. That's the lead there that you're getting there. And then does that sounds like it might eliminate sales of your book? Because unless they also want to read it, they're just grabbing the audiobook. So they're not buying the book at that point.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And that's the biggest objection is like, won't I cannibalize the sales of my book, right? That's what most people think. And I say yes to a certain extent. It's much less than you would think though. So one thing I've just found, most people are good people. At least that's something I believe. Some people don't believe that, but I believe that, there's a lot of reciprocity where, people that get your book for free, they're going to say, hey, I'll download the Kindle book or whatever. So that's one thing. Then the second thing is that a lot of people want whisper sync. So if they have the Kindle version, they want the audiobook from Audible. So I still sell it on Audible, and we sell a crap ton of these audiobooks because my hypothesis is that some people are just discovering it in Audible and they're not going on Amazon. They're just in their car, they're looking and they buy it. It's like you're reaching a different audience. Another hypothesis that I have is that the whisper sync thing. So it's like, if I want to read it in my Kindle, then pick it up in audio, then go back and forth. I can't do that if I just download the MP3. Right. I have to get it through Audible. So that's one thing. And the last thing is, I don't really care. Like for the amount that people, it might cannibalize sales, for me, I know that lead is worth way more than the $3, $5, whatever that I would get if they bought my book. So even for that small percentage where it does cannibalize sales, I could care less, because they're over here thinking, man, this Chandler guy's an idiot. He doesn't even know that I can download his audiobook and I don't even have to buy his book. But I'm thinking, I've got their email address and sometimes even their phone number. And so it's like that, for me, I know that the lifetime value of that lead is going to be way more than if they would have bought one of my books.
Excellent. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's one of my good tricks. So we're going to have to keep that between the two of us and our listeners here.
Yeah, of course. Definitely. Yeah. Is it okay if I try that? Because that sounds awesome.
Oh, for sure.
I'm stoked on that one.
For sure.
That's great. Okay, cool. So, I mean, other things that I think about, I mean, for me in the book publishing space, so I've got a course. From that course, I started writing a book. I mean, my big thing was always just like fear of how long it's going to take to get it all done. So, I mean, when you're looking at someone and they're saying like, I've always wanted to write a book, but I don't have the time, that's got to be one of your biggest objections.
Oh, it for sure is. And there's a 3-step process that I teach. And I'll, I published this new book. It's called Published. It's The Proven Path from Blank Page to Published Author. And I kind of outline a lot of stuff that we're talking about this in this interview. So if people want to go like in depth to some of the stuff, they can check out the book. But I talk about this 3-step writing process in there, which is pretty simple. It's step 1 is to create a mind map, which is a blank sheet of paper, printer paper with no lines preferably. You put that idea in the center of the page, then you branch out. Mm-hmm. You put everything that you can think of on this topic. So every story that you have, lesson that you learn, conversation that you have with a client, questions that your people who are going through your courses always ask and get hung up on, books that you've read, stuff like that, right? You're dumping it all on there. That's the mind map. That's step 1. Step 2, to turn that mind map into an outline. This is very simple. What you're going to do here is you take the common themes of ideas that you would come up with, say, in your mind map here, mm-hmm. And you're going to start to group those common themes of ideas into sections. And these are going to form the sections of your book. It's 4 to 7 sections is what I recommend. Yeah. And you're going to organize those in the order that you would actually cover it in a book. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take those 4 to 7 sections, now they're in order, and you're going to drill down into each section and say 2 to 4 chapters. Yeah. Per section, right? Now you have your chapter by chapter outline, or your kind of like your roadmap to writing your book. And then that leads me to step 3, which is to write the dang thing. Now, that sounds a little bit simplistic, and this is probably where most people get hung up, but this is a very specific process that people can follow. So this is like kind of like a choose your own adventure. So the first path, they can follow that mind map outline, right? Process, but on a chapter by chapter level. So for example, if I'm writing chapter 1, I'm going to spend 10 minutes mind mapping everything that you know about that, or everything that I know about that chapter. And I'm going to spend 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline. Then I'm going to spend 45 minutes to an hour writing that chapter. Now, this is the exact process that me and my brother used to write our first book in 1 week. We did it in 1 week. It was 225 pages, real deal, legit book. It wasn't like a short ebook. And so we did that, and it was the very first book that we ever wrote. Now, so that's the one path on the choose your own adventure. The other path is to speak it. Now, if you're like me and you speak better than you write, I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout, like you mentioned at the beginning. And so for me, writing doesn't come as this easy thing. It's actually pretty difficult and pretty painful. So I like to speak things out. So I'll do the same exact process. I'll mind map it, outline it, and then I'll speak it. So speak for 10 to 15 minutes, get that transcribed. You can use rev.com or the Rev app. You can use Dragon Dictation. There's all kinds of services that will do either free or paid dictation services for you. And then that turns into your draft. Then you just hire an editor to edit that for you. So that's the gist of it. And especially if you have a course, if you're a course creator, then you can do something similar. I've created a whole book where I pulled things off of my actual course, which I'm sure we'll dive into that later in this interview. But just to pause for 1 second and just say that, to answer your earlier question, I kind of like laid out how you do it. And what if you don't think you have enough time? That's the process that we teach, where you can either do it in a weekend or you can do it over the course of a month or 2 by just doing 30 minutes to an hour per day. Right. And it makes it pretty simple to kind of plug along through that. But the most important piece of advice that I could give here is you only focus on the rough draft. don't think about anything else. So don't think about how you're going to market it. Don't think about the title. Don't think about the cover. Everything else is just a distraction.
Yeah.
And there's the thing that we say inside self-publishing school is done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
It's the old Facebook motto. So done is better than perfect. Get that rough draft finished.
Right. Yeah. Cause you're right. You could spend a week obsessing. I've seen people do this in courses. You spend a week obsessing over the cover and you still have no product inside at all. So way better to have the product and then look at it and say like, all right, what should I do next?
Yes.
But at least that point, if you get the product done, you're moving ahead, right? Everything else is icing.
Exactly. And then, like you said, you've seen this in courses. It's the same thing in books. It's like this magical thing that happens when you finish that rough draft. It's like you start to actually see the light at the end of the tunnel and you say to yourself, oh, okay, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go straight to, the cover for the course or the cover for the book, you feel good early on. And to the outside world, it looks like it, you're kind of playing house like you do as a kid or whatever, right? You're just, it's like, oh, look at me, I'm successful and I'm doing this, but you haven't made any real progress. So that's pretty superficial. And when the rubber meets the road and it's time to actually put this thing out there, you're probably not going to have any momentum because you were so worried about these outer facing things that just don't matter.
Awesome. Okay, great. And it almost sounds like a lot of that process. I mean, I have a slightly different but similar process for building course outlines and actually getting to the point of scripting and building your courses. But it actually sounds like you could use a lot of that process you're talking about to go and apply it to build a course. For
sure. You can use it to build a course. You can use it to create a speech or a talk. You can use it to create a book. I mean, that mind map outline, create or write, whatever you want to call it, that process can be replicated across all platforms, all mediums.
Cool. And you started in books. You published that first book with your brother. You've got 5 best-selling books. And then from there, you created Self-Publishing School. And for everyone who's just catching up with us or didn't hear earlier, it's self-publishingschool.com. We'll put the link in here. So why the move from books to course, and how's that transition been for you? And then I'll ask some more stuff about what's working in there.
Yeah, it's been great, and it really was. It was started by 2 things. One, people just kept asking about it. I was working on a business at the time that was failing, and it was failing really hard. And people just kept asking, like, "How are you doing these books? How are you publishing them successfully?" All that stuff. And so I said, "Hey, maybe I should teach this." It's like someone can only smack you in the face so many times before you turn around and look. And that's what people were doing. And I'd get on a phone call with them. I'd tell them everything that I knew for free. And I'd just say, hey, hope that helps. Just being a nice guy. And then finally I said, you know what? I should start charging for this and I should create a course. And so that's why I created it. And also I'm a firm believer that a book is the entry point. This is probably the cheesiest thing I'll say on this whole interview, but it really hits home with me. So hopefully it hits home for other people. But I always like to say that a book is like the key that opens the door to Narnia, right? This world that you didn't even know existed until you got the key, until you opened the door. And so for me and for our students and for thousands and thousands of people who have been through the program, what we've seen is that the book is just the starting point. So I'm a firm believer that when you do the book, you need to look to, okay, how can I now leverage this? Whether it's PR, whether it's a course, whether it's speaking, whether it's coaching, whether it's done for you services, your local brick and mortar business, driving leads for that, driving sales for that, whether it's a physical product, a supplement, an Amazon product, like whatever that is, a book is the starting point. So for those reasons, I transitioned into courses. It went really well. I launched, I want to say my 4th book. It's called Book Launch. I launched it in January of 2015. And then in February of 2015, all of my bank accounts were negative, and I had borrowed $15,000 from friends and family to start Self-Publishing School. So I kind of pushed all the chips in the table, and it went from all of my bank accounts negative to that book kind of sparked things off. And we went from 0 to 1.32 million in 2015. So from February to the end of the year. And then we did about 2.2 or over 2.2 in 2016. And then we're on pace to do 5 to 6 in 2017. So books have spearheaded that. And every time I launch a book, there's a huge spike in sales. There's, more credibility, more strategic partnerships, relationships, leads, you name it. It just, they work so hand in hand.
Excellent. Wow. That's great. Okay. I'm going to have to revisit that book I've got.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking of the new one I want to do instead of finishing that one.
That is common. So I'll tell you, Greg, it's funny you mentioned that. We only have 2 rules inside self-publishing school.
Yeah.
One is you can't write more than 1 book at one time.
Yep.
That's the first one. And then the second one is that you can't edit while you write.
Right.
When you edit while you write, that's why people have 75% finished books, like you're talking about. It's because you've properly edited and then you get sucked in, and you're like, oh man, this sucks. This isn't any good. I've got to change this, and then you just keep editing the chapters that you have, and you don't just get to the end of the road,
right?
The rough draft, and then say, okay, cool. Now I'm going to read this for the first time. Because every time you read your book for the first time, no matter who you are, it doesn't matter how good of a writer you are, you think it sucks.
Yeah.
You think it's horrible. And it happens every time I wrote a book, and I've published 6 at this point, right? Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, this is funny, Greg, you'll get a kick out of this. So I've got this, it's on my background of it's like on my desktop to remind me of this, but it's this guy, he explains the creative process.
Yep.
And he says the creative process, you can break it down into 6 steps. Now this goes for course creation. This goes for book creation. This goes for also being an entrepreneur. This is 6 steps. You got step 1. This is going to be awesome. Step 2, this is hard. Step 3, this is terrible. Step 4, I'm terrible. Step 5, hey, not bad. Step 6, that was awesome. Right? And so the I'm terrible part, the step 4, that happens the first time you read your book. It's just inevitable. But that's why we really encourage and urge people. And, in my course, I actually tell them, you can't watch another video until you finish your rough draft. And then the next video, I'm like, if you're watching this video right now, that means that you should have finished your rough draft. If you're watching this video and you haven't, you need to shut this video off right now. Be a content whore. Don't blow through all the videos, and you can do that. And so I just keep pounding them with that. It's like, hey, stop right now if you haven't finished your rough draft.
That's great. I love that. I like that stop here, make sure you've actually finished what you said you were going to do, and then let's come back to it. That's awesome. And I hear you on the creative process. I've done that even with my course. I was lucky actually with my first online course. I just hammered through it, built it, got it launched, put it out there. I had a bet with my brother actually. It was funny. You wrote your first book with your brother, right? I made my first online course with my brother. We were actually living together at the time. We got the thing launched in under a month. We had a bet. He bet no one would buy it in that first, month that we launched it. I bet that someone would. And first month, I think we sold it for $29 and we sold 10 copies. So we made $300.
No way. That's awesome.
And then it went from there. And it really took off later after that. But the big thing was I created the outline originally, and it was going to be 80 hours, this epic online course. And luckily my brother had the attitude you're kind of giving me now. He just said, cut it down, do something that you can have done in a week or a month at the most. And so I did that, and I got something mini, just a piece of what I wanted to do out, put it out there, and then went back and edited and reviewed and rebuilt and redid it. And it seems like, you get the same kind of thing with books, maybe not quite to the paring it down to that tiny piece like I did, because I always knew I could add on one extra half hour lesson or a chapter at a time. But you're right. It's you bite off more than you can chew, and it's exactly that. You never deliver on it.
100%. And I know we're probably going to get to the whole going from course to book at some point, but I'll just dive into the course creation real quick, because I think people will find this valuable. I launched my first book. I launched my course. I didn't even have a course, and I sold 44 copies of it. So we sold 44 copies. It was $86,000. And because I wanted to validate it before I even created it. So we sold those, and then I co-created it alongside the people that went through the course. So I said, hey, tell me exactly what you want to learn. And then we dripped it out week by week over 12 weeks. And then that's when we did that's what we did with the first iteration. And then I came together at the end, and I went into my content cave for a month. And I said, okay, cool. Now I'm going to retool everything and make it a full-fledged, polished course. It was just kind of people would just tell us what we wanted, and I would just, or tell me what they wanted, and I would just create it. So I'm a firm believer in not overcomplicating things.
Yep.
And especially validating things up front.
Awesome. That's great. So you mentioned that's wow, 80. So 44 copies. So you're selling it for $2,000 a pop then?
So we had $1,000 and a $3,000 price point. So
wow.
It averaged to be about $2,000 a pop. I think we had that first round. I think we had, I want to say it was a fourth take the 3,000 and the other 3/4 took the 1,000.
Yeah.
That math works close to right. But then that's what we did. And then we got to the end of that and we had over a 60% success rate, meaning that over 60% of people wrote and published a book within 6 months. I tallied it up at about the 6-month mark, which is just mind blowing when you compare success rates of a lot of courses. It's like, so that's when for me, I said, okay, I did this myself. Now I've been able to successfully replicate this for others. So this is something that I can get behind, probably similar to when you sold your first 10 copies in the month. It's like, oh, this is something I can get behind. And this is something that is actually going to help a lot of people.
Excellent. Yeah. No, we didn't have an $86,000 launch.
Yeah.
But that was back in 2004, I think, that I launched my first online course. So the internet even a bit different then.
Right.
So that's amazing. I love hearing that success story. Mine came over a much more protracted period of time on the course. But
well, I've got to tell you, when you have two business partners and there's three of you, which I had two business partners at the time, the $86,000 seems like a lot, but it doesn't go too far. We have to live.
Yeah.
In terms of like, we were 6-7 months later and we're like, oh my gosh, we gotta do another launch.
Yeah.
Of course.
Awesome. And then, so you'd mentioned around going from book to course, course to book, right?
Yep.
How does that work? So if we've got course creators here, obviously listening, watching, lots of people creating courses on Thinkific, what's your process, or how do you look at going from course over to book? Because you started with books, went to courses. Have you done the course to book thing then?
Yes, I have. And so I actually turned self-publishing school into a book, basically, and I've done it a couple of times. So the first one was called Book Launch. And so what I did is, as course creators, you've mapped out the flow of your course. And I'm going to guess you didn't just haphazardly throw it together. Most people overthink it as opposed to underthink it. So there's probably some, there's some thought behind it, and there's some purpose in how you've laid it out. So guess what? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just do that same exact thing, but in book form. Now, I know the first objection here is, well, if I'm giving everything away for free, why would people buy my course? Now, there's a saying I heard a while back that I've always loved, and it says that if you give all of your best stuff away for free, people will pay you to tell it to them again. Right? Because it's just this, it's the value ladder concept.
Yeah.
It's Russell Brunson talks about this, but it's really been around since the beginning of time. So there's 3 rungs of the value ladder for most people, for people who aren't familiar with this concept. So there's rung number 1, which is teach me how to do it. There's rung number 2, which is show me how to do it. And then there's rung number 3, which is do it for me.
Yep.
Done for me. Now there's different variations of the value ladder, but that's the one that I'm familiar with.
Yep.
And so I'll give you a couple examples. I'll give you a real life example, then I'll give you a course example, and then we'll kind of bring this back to your question.
No, that's good.
So real life example, I want to fix the stereo in my 04 Altima that has almost 200,000 miles on it. So I want to fix the radio, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, okay, teach me how to do it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take out the Altima manual. Right now, anyone who's ever read those manuals know that it can be kind of tough. And I'll probably get frustrated. I'll say, okay, well, I want someone to show me how to do it. So I'm going to escalate, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go on YouTube, find a video, someone changing a stereo in an 04 Nissan Altima.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. Now at that point, I tinker around with it for a while, and I realize that I have to take my dash off to change the stereo. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't really want to do this anymore. So then I escalate up to the top level, which is where I say, get my cousin Billy from down the street to do it, and I pay him, or I go down to the auto body shop and I pay them to do it. So I've just escalated through the 3 rungs of the value ladder. Now let's give this example with courses. So rung number 1, book launch, my book, read the book. I say, Chandler, I'm convinced that I need to do a book. And now I like to call a book a silent salesman, because it doesn't say a word, but yet it does. And it's silently selling your prospect. So they say, okay, I'm convinced that I need a book. And you've just outlined all your best stuff. Obviously you can't fit it all in here. I wanted that audiobook. Next thing I know, you're telling me about self-publishing school. And I say, hey, yes, this would be really helpful. So I enroll in self-publishing school. I ascended to the second rung of the value ladder. Then if I want to if I want it done for you, then maybe they'll purchase what we call our preferred outsourcers Rolodex, which is people who will do parts of the process for you. Or maybe they ascend to something which we don't offer, but something like a book in a box, which is like, we'll write the book for you, like a $15,000 or $20,000 price point. So that's the rungs of the value ladder in a couple different examples with that. So I'll circle back to your original question, which is how do you go from book to course? I kind of outlined that. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yep.
Use exactly what you have, and then use the videos, transcribe them. Yeah. Transcribe your videos, your audios, your PDFs, and then that's going to form your rough draft. But please don't stop there. Do some basic editing or hire an editor and really polish it so that it's an actual book. Yeah. It really pisses me off when people are just like, transcribe, put a cover on it, put it on Amazon. No one needs that. Make sure that you spend a little bit of time and some intentionality to make sure that it's good. But that's what I did with Book Launch. That book has almost 620 reviews on Amazon. It's pumped thousands and thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of leads at this point. And it's brought hundreds of thousands of dollars in business for my company. And it's also what I did when my book published. Mm-hmm. So I took a different take and I taught stuff that I didn't teach in Book Launch, same thing. And it serves as an entry point for your course.
Excellent. And so if you are first time getting into Amazon and putting that out there, I know a big part of that is the reviews. Do you have any, I know that's a little bit of a sidetrack, but any tips on getting the reviews on there and getting that going? Because you've got so many, they're so good. How do you do that?
Of course. Yeah. And it's very similar, all these ecosystems are similar, right? Yeah. Whether it's courses, podcasts, or Amazon books. So the first thing is creating a launch team, which we have a post on the Self-Publishing School blog. I'll give you the link so we can link it up. And
definitely.
How to do a launch team. This is important. This is something that really will help people because it's a team of people that are helping push your book. They get the advanced copy of the book for free. They agree to read the book ahead of time and leave a review on launch date. That really helps. A successful author that I talked to when I did my first book, he said, I scrap for every review that I get. So if anytime anyone says, hey, Chandler, I love your book and I just finished reading it, or they'll send me an email or whatever, I'll say, that's awesome. Would you mind copying and pasting that into an Amazon review? And I just send them the link and say, you can put it right here. Yeah. And so just good old fashioned hustle. Yeah. Another thing that I do is a review tracker. So I put together an Excel sheet, and it's everyone who's supported my book or supports me. I will ask them to leave a review, and then there's just an Excel sheet where have they left a review or not? And then I'll just keep following up. And I'll send them personal videos of me like dancing and stuff during launch week and asking for a review, that sort of thing. That's especially what I did early on with my first book. Awesome. So that would be applicable to people with their first book. And then this final thing, we're really getting into the meat here. And this is kind of like the audiobook where we gotta keep this to yourself, listeners. It's a good one. So I've got what I call the review sweeper. And I call it that because it just continues to sweep in leads day after day after day. Now, what happens here, it's just an automated email sequence, okay? So what I do is anytime people, they download my audiobook, resources in the book, the PDF of the book, they buy the book on my site because we have a free plus shipping book funnel where people can get the book for free. They just pay shipping and handling. So any way that they could possibly get the book and give us their information, we'll put them in a sequence. 21 days later, we'll say, hey, looks like a few weeks ago you got my book launch. I'm just curious. How do you like it? Hit reply to this email and let me know. Mm-hmm. So they'll reply to that email, and then we'll have someone on my support staff. They'll say, hey, thank you so much for this. If it's good. If it's bad, they'll just say, oh, sorry about that, and handle it. But if it's good, they'll say, hey, thank you so much. Would you mind copying and pasting that into an Amazon review? Here it is. This is really helpful. This helps the book long-term, and I'll make sure that Chandler sees this. Thank you for your feedback. And so that's the first email. Then there's 2 more emails where it just says, hey, could you leave a review on the book? The second one just straight up asks, And so this is really important to me. It means a lot. I read every review, and it helps with the longevity of this book on Amazon. And then the last one is just like a last call. And it says last call for a review. And I just say, hey, look, I'm not going to keep bugging you about this. This is the last time I'm going to ask. It takes 2 minutes. If you could do this, it'd be really helpful. If not, no worries. But if you're going to do it, please do it today. And just go ahead, and here's the link to do it. So I'm kind of like putting a little bit of urgency and just saying, hey, go ahead and leave a review. So that's the process. And I'll take it with published. There's 1 week, it was like 2 or 3 weeks after launch week. And I want to say we had 75 reviews. I'm like, man, I really wanted to hit 100 already. And I looked at the next week and we had like 130 or something. I know it was 118.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Then I remembered, it's like 3 weeks after launch week.
Right.
People are kicking into the review sweeper.
Awesome.
And then I started teaching it in some of our stuff. Like we have these weekly live hangouts inside our mastermind community for self-publishing school. So I started teaching it, and then people are commenting. They're like, oh, that got me. I just left a review 2 days ago. So
Nice.
that really works, and that helps because Amazon, just like other ecosystems, they really value reviews.
Yep.
For longevity. It's social proof. We could go a whole nother down that train, but we won't go down that train. Social proof is important. So
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we teach that, especially even around your courses and even just getting testimonials on your course landing pages and that kind of stuff for it. So
for sure.
Definitely. Awesome. So I just a high level thought here. I didn't want to take up too much more of your time, but wanted, if, for anyone who's watching and is interested in this stuff, I think that process of, if you're already a course creator or just getting into it, building the book is obviously an amazing opportunity. I'm already thinking about stuff that I could do with it, with everything we've learned here. But if you want to check out more, check out self-publishingschool.com. You can learn more from Chandler there. And I know you have some free training resources there as well to start people off too, if they want to check that out. Any other stuff you wanted to share with people around course creators and getting into books and publishing, or just course creation or other things in general? Oh gosh. One resource that might be helpful for people, which I'll give you the link for this, is we got a blog post. It's how to self-publish a book in 2017. If you're thinking like, hey, let's go down more into the weeds than what you've talked about on this interview, Chandler, then that'll go through there. And then so we'll go send people that way. And then the other thing I would say in terms of course creation, I'm a huge fan of accountability and building it into your course. I think one of the reasons that we have such a high success rate like I haven't seen in any other course that I've seen is because we build accountability into our course and we build coaching into our course. So we have a higher end package that has coaching, we train up people who have been through our program and students, and we train them up, we certify them, we vet them, we send them through this whole process, and then we actually have them as coaches, which I realize that's an advanced thing. That's not something you do out of the gate, but that's something that we do, and we found it really helps with the success rate of our students and bumps up the lifetime value of our customer because that costs more. And then to the accountability portion, we have what we like to call accountability buddies, which is just, our funny word for an accountability partner. We build that into the course. We have people find an accountability buddy. We give them a structure to have a weekly call to where they share their top 3 goals and whether or not they hit those goals. We build that into the course, as well as we have like checkpoints in the course. We're like, you should have done this by now. You should have done this by now. Here's a day-by-day calendar, like really just mapping it out completely. Because I think if you're going to promise a result or tell people that they can get a result, you should really follow through with that and push them to get there, even if that means increasing the amount of refunds that you get on the course, which this is advice that no one will tell you, because it's like, oh no, let's just get that refund rate as low as possible. And that means like they'll buy and we won't bug them, right? Just let them get them in there. But I just really think that investing in the success of your students, it's a long-term play, but it makes a lot more sense. So we make our people uncomfortable. And we're like, hey, you should have done this by now. And so sometimes they're like, oh, whoa, I knew I didn't have enough time. I'm going to go ahead and refund. That's okay, because for the other people, that it makes them more successful because we're really urging them. I mean, we tell them they're going to go from blank page to published author in 90 days. So we really want to live up to that. So that would be like my final piece of advice.
for course stuff is just really hold people accountable, and so that you can help make sure that they have success in your course.
Awesome. That's, I love that you got into the student success side and the accountability side. I'm going to make sure we highlight that in kind of promoting and sharing this, because that is and it's coming at the end. So we'll maybe make a note of it and point it out at the beginning, and because that's awesome. I mean, just the number that you quoted there of 60% of people 6 months later had published a book. I mean, just getting them to finish a course is always monumental, but to actually apply it and do something so time consuming, so such a big monumental thing in their life as publishing a book, that they get 60% of people through. That's amazing. So I love the accountability thing. I actually was talking to Jack Canfield about accountability partners recently, and he's huge on that for his online programs. That's actually one of the single greatest things you can do to drive up course completion rates. So definitely putting that in place. And I love the way you're doing it and building that in with the accountability buddy.
Yeah. And by the way, it helps with refunds.
Right.
Like if you have an accountability buddy and you're thinking about refunding, like, I'm going to bail on my accountability buddy.
Yeah.
I'm giving up on the course, I'm giving up on my accountability buddy, and I'm giving up on myself. So it's a lot bigger of a decision to refund the course, which is certainly not why we do it, but it is an added benefit.
No, and at the end of the day, your refunds are going to be tied to your student success and happiness and referrals and testimonials. That plays back into social proof. I mean, if you have 60% of people publishing a book, that's 60% of people going out there saying, I published this book because of Chandler and self-publishing school, which is awesome. It doesn't get any better than that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the accountability partners and the coaching. So I absolutely love it. I'm already thinking how I can apply that. So thank you.
And I know we like keep going and we say we're going to stop, but that just reminded me of one more thing, which is we have a customer referral program. Yeah. And so we say, hey, in your book, put a page that says, hey, here's how I did it. And there's a link that's their customer referral link, which I'm sure you guys probably have something similar to this in Thinkific, where it's, we say, hey, for every person that you get, it's like a bounty basically, right? Or a referral fee. And so that actually just perpetuates the cycle, because when they publish a book, when people read that book, they're like, oh, here's how I did this book. They click over, become a customer referral. That person can pay back their tuition with that. And now we've gotten more customers, all because we invested in the success of the customers that we have.
Awesome. I love it. That's great. And I think a lot of everyone here watching this can really put that to use in their own business, whether it's courses or books or even other educational related businesses. So that's awesome.
For sure.
Great. Well, thank you, Chandler. I really appreciate it. That was some amazing stuff. We got to do this again, because you're like a wealth of knowledge here. This is awesome. I want to dig in and kind of find out a bit more about the stuff that you're doing. That's awesome. And I think whether it's going from course to book or book to course or applying all the principles that you've shared here, it's hugely valuable to people. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Greg, hey, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.